During the last episode of Nibiru Palace, we saw how, on a parallel with Alexandra Palace, St. Paul's Cathedral's dome in fact depicted the takeoff and landing pad for a UFO. If we enhance this slightly and remove the people around the pillars, we can actually show how this would have looked on takeoff and on landing. As you can see, it fits the depiction very well. In fact, all the great domes of the world, and most of the small ones, all depict flying discs and their landing and takeoff pads. Washington, July the 12th, 1952. Flying saucers visit the White House. One of the flying saucers was invisible. This one here. The White House is built in the same format as a flying disc and its landing and takeoff pad, in the same format as St. Paul's Cathedral and Alexandra Palace. And this is a real newsreel clip. On top of the White House dome, standing on another flying disc, is Persephone, the Greek Nephilim goddess of the underworld. Please note that her headdress is adorned with pentagrams. Also, the eagle headdress is a smaller version of that worn by the Anunnaki of Babylonia, and also the Mayan flying gods. This is just one more piece of evidence that links the Greek gods, the Sumerian gods, and the Mayan gods together. Adding to the weight of this evidence is the fact that the inside of the Capitol dome has the same flying depiction patterns as the outside of Alexandra Palace. On top of the dome at St. Paul's Cathedral, there is a golden globe with a cross on top. So you have a planet and a cross. Yet another depiction of Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. Now if we compare the dome at the first Alexandra Palace with the dome at St. Paul's Cathedral, and also with the ancient depictions of flying discs above Rome, above France, above many other countries, and also the ceiling plasters in Alexandra Palace, and of course coinage, we can see that the patterns on all of them match with those on the domes. Now that we know that the dome patterns are certainly similar, let's compare the buildings one to one, St. Paul's Cathedral dome with Alexandra Palace. As you can see, the square pattern around St. Paul's Cathedral dome is a perfect match with the patterns inside the arches at both the front and back of Alexandra Palace. The pillars are also the same. Now let's take a close look at the inside of St. Paul's Cathedral dome and compare it directly with the front of Alexandra Palace. They both have a blue circular disc theme. They also both have hexagons. Working on a parallel, unlike St. Paul's Cathedral, the hexagons at Alexandra Palace are stretched out, whereas at St. Paul's Cathedral they are around the middle of the dome. This clever cryptic parallel camouflage has ensured that the secret of Alexandra Palace has remained a secret since it was built in 1873. As you can see, everything fits, one in parallel with the other. So now we know that the hexagons in fact depict thrusters. Look at the red arches beneath the blue disc. There are 5 of them on 6 pillars, each made of 6 blocks, and the red part beneath the hexagons actually depicts a rocket thrust. Alexandra Palace is also built in a format which parallels our normal visual perception. Because our normal visual perception is not used to recognizing shapes set at parallel angles, we could look at these great buildings throughout our entire lives and never realize what it is we're actually looking at. For instance, this building in Holloway, North London depicts flying discs and domes, planets. However, it also depicts something else. The scales of justice, Satan's version of justice, depicted as cryptological flying discs, which are set in pyramids or triangles. The Nephilim goddess standing at the top of the Old Bailey in London is holding the scales in her left hand and is clutching a sword in her right hand, and she is holding her arms outstretched while standing on a dome. Once again, this is yet another reference to the planet of the crossing, Nibiru. On all 4 sides of the building at Alexandra Palace, on each side of the flying disc depictions, you will see the curled ram's horns. However, these curled ram's horns also depict sixes, but they also depict air turbulence. If you look at the top of the Greco-Roman pillars at Alexandra Palace, you will notice that they too have curled ram's horns type designs, but these in fact depict air turbulence once again. This also applies to the rest of the world's Greco-Roman pillars. If we strip away the building and leave the parts that we've been discussing, after making a couple of small adjustments for the sake of our normal visual perception, this is what it looks like: an overhead flyby with air turbulence. There is even evidence of elaborate mechanical workmanship, as you can see from this sophisticated cog mechanism. Now let's add the two, Alexandra Palace and St Paul's Cathedral, together and see what they make. As you can see, they both clearly depict UFOs. These UFOs are cleverly cryptologically hidden within the buildings, so they exist, if you like, in a parallel universe consisting of lateral or unusual angles of visual perception. It would also be in context to say that these flying discs are in fact cloaked. The American stealth bombers, for instance, are cloaked using unusual angles of construction which make them invisible to radar and to sight. And the same angular visual technology has been used here to cloak these discs within these buildings, which is why no one ever notices that we're surrounded by depictions of flying saucers. The front of Alexandra Palace has 3 UFOs, therefore it would look like this, and be a perfect match for the 5,600-year-old stone carvings from Sumeria. Also, please note that 3 pillars are depicted in the 5,600-year-old Sumerian stone carving. These are a perfect match for the 3 pillars of modern-day Freemasonry, which is a secret satanic organization. The 3 pillars in modern-day Freemasonry represent the letter M. The letter M, in turn, represents 666. We know this because the Malan's website, as you will have seen in earlier episodes, tried to tell us that this monstrosity that they are building at Hemel Hempstead to commemorate the burning of the Buncefield Ore Depot is supposed to look like an M from a particular angle. So once again we can see the play on parallel angles of vision, the same as at Alexandra Palace. What gives this evidence so much credibility is the fact that it has come from a local government website of Hertfordshire, and that they themselves said it is a play on parallel angles of vision, and also a play on their logo. The word logo is Greek. It actually means word rather than a picture. Therefore, it is also a play on words using pictures and parallel angles of vision, just like Alexandra Palace and all the great buildings of the world. So now we're beginning to see a much clearer link between Satanism, Freemasonry and UFOs.